On our newscast tonight, a high-ranking Korea trade official working in Libya is kidnapped by armed assailants. It is believed that the act was strategically executed and carefully planned. We have the latest on this. The H5N8 strain of avian influenza. Authorities here in the nation confirm an outbreak of the highly pathogenic strain at 2 farms in the south of the nation. The ban on the movement of livestock and farm workers in select areas remains in place. President Park Geun-hye has completed her state visit to India. We turn to Indian ambassador to South Korea for details on the summit talks and more. For more on these stories, stay with us for Early Edition at 6.
It is 11 a.m. in Tripoli, 2:30 p.m. in New Delhi, and 6 on a Monday evening here in Seoul. I'm Kim Yeon-ji.
Well, thank you for joining us. I'm Daniel Che for Early Edition at 6. We begin with trouble in Tripoli.
A Korean trade official was kidnapped in the Libyan capital of Tripoli on Sunday evening local time, which is early Monday morning Korea time.
Well, not much information has been released yet as officials in Seoul work around the clock on the case. Our Hwang Sung-hee reports.
Korea's foreign ministry confirmed Monday that a Korean trade official was kidnapped by a group of unidentified armed men in Libya. Seok-woo, the head of trade relations at the state-run Korea Trade Investment Promotion Agency in Libya, was taken by 4 armed men on his way home from work in Tripoli on Sunday evening local time. The incident was reported by Han's driver to the Korean embassy, who said the kidnappers stopped their car and threatened both of them with weapons before taking Han in their car and heading west. The identity and motive of the kidnappers remain unknown, although there is rising speculation that Al-Qaeda may have been behind the abduction. The incident is being viewed as having been pre-planned, either for money or to gain political leverage. Officials in Seoul are working around the clock on the case. The Korean government and KOTRA convened an emergency meeting early Monday morning to discuss the incident, and the task force headed by the foreign ministry has also been set up.
We must put all our efforts into resolving the incident in a swift manner so that the kidnapped KOTRA official can return to his family as soon as possible.
Many parts of Libya have been hit by violence and unrest in recent years, with the capital of Tripoli declaring a state of emergency this past weekend after fresh clashes with armed groups. As of January 18th, there were approximately 551 Koreans residing in Libya, and although there have been a number of robbery cases against Koreans in Libya in the past, this is the first time a Korean has been kidnapped. Seoul's foreign ministry said that it will be working closely with all channels, including the Libyan government, for the safe and swift release of the abductee. It has also issued a special travel warning banning all Koreans from traveling to Libya. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
Moving on to the latest on the bird flu outbreak in Korea. Well, officials say migratory ducks probably brought the virus here. The government's ban on the movement of livestock and farm workers remains in place in parts of the country's southwest after authorities confirmed the highly pathogenic H5N8 strain of the virus at 2 farms. Our Park Ji-won has the latest.
The nation's agriculture ministry has confirmed a group of migratory ducks found dead in a reservoir near a poultry farm in southwestern Korea were infected with the H5N8 strain of the avian influenza. The farm in Gochang, Jeollado province was where the first case of the bird flu was confirmed late last week. Currently, bird flu cases have been confirmed at 3 poultry farms in Gochang and Buan counties. 2 of those cases have been confirmed as the highly pathogenic H5N8 strain. The other case has yet to be identified, but it is known to be one of the H5 strains. Ministry officials say it is highly likely the migratory ducks brought the virus to Korea. The Agriculture Ministry called an emergency meeting on Monday morning to discuss measures to respond to the virus should it spread nationwide. The Korean government has already banned the movement of livestock and livestock-related facilities and people in Korea's southwestern Jeollado province for 48 hours in an attempt to contain the outbreak.
The Korean government has ordered a temporary standstill on livestock, people working at livestock farms and livestock facilities in Jeollado province to curb the spread of the avian influenza, according to the country's Livestock Infectious Diseases Prevention Act.
The order will remain in effect until midnight Monday, but the government might extend it according to the outcome of Monday's emergency meeting. Quarantine authorities say about 100,000 birds have been culled or will be culled over the next few days. Korea destroyed more than 5 million birds during the most recent bird flu outbreak in 2011. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
A new chapter to add in the growing story of tensions in Northeast Asia. A memorial hall honoring a Korean independence fighter who assassinated a top Japanese official in the early 20th century opened its doors to the public in China on Sunday. One day later, the Japanese government called out Beijing for allowing it to open in the first place. Our Kim Ji-yeon has this story.
The Japanese government says it is deeply regretful about Beijing's decision to approve the opening of a memorial hall honoring Korean independence fighter An Jung-gun. Japanese Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshihide Suga's response comes a day after the memorial hall opened to the public in the northeastern Chinese city of Harbin. The city's railway station is where in 1909 An shot and killed Hirobumi Ito, who served as Prime Minister of Japan and led preparations for the annexation of the Korean peninsula to Japan in the early 20th century.
This is the place where the Japanese Prime Minister was murdered, and for us, this is the place where the terrorist An Jung-gun was sentenced to death.
The memorial hall consists of exhibition rooms telling the story of An's life and shows the exact spot of Ito's assassination. The facility was built after Korean President Park Geun-hye brought up the idea of creating a monument for An during her meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping last June. Although hailed as a hero in Korea and China, An is considered a murderer by many in Japan. Tokyo had asked Beijing to scrap plans to build a memorial and call the embassies of China and Korea to complain about the matter. Beijing's decision to go ahead with the memorial comes amid already heightened tensions in the region. Seoul and Beijing have condemned the visits by high-profile Japanese politicians to the controversial Yasukuni War Shrine and for Tokyo's refusal to apologize for the country's wartime atrocities. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
And over in the United States, another monument, this one remembering the suffering of thousands of women drafted into sexual slavery by the Japanese military during World War II, has been built in the state of New York. Resolutions from both the New York State Senate and the New York House are engraved on the statue in remembrance of the victims. An opening ceremony is scheduled for Friday. Last week, U.S. President Barack Obama signed a federal spending bill that includes a provision on Japan's wartime sexual enslavement. The bill cites a 2007 resolution asking for the Japanese government to address the issue of the so-called comfort women, mainly from Korea and China, who were forced into sexual servitude for Japanese soldiers during the Second World War. President Park Geun-hye is busier than ever with her diplomatic efforts. Currently, she is in Switzerland after completing her 3-day state visit to India.
There, she discussed an array of topics with Indian Prime Minister Manmohan Singh and President Pranab Mukherjee. It was a chance for the two sides to forge stronger relations and enhance business ties.
And to talk about what was discussed and accomplished by President Park's state visit to India, we have Indian Ambassador to South Korea, Vishnu Prakash, here with us. Thank you for joining us.
Delighted to be here, and let me wish all your viewers a Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you too.
Mani Bade Seo.
Excellent Korean.
All right. So how would you rate President Park Geun-hye's visit to India? Was it a highly acclaimed win-win situation for both sides?
Well, her visit was a resounding success, and she, along with the Indian Prime Minister, have basically paved the way for the Chapter 301 of the relationship. And if you see the joint statement, It's a vision document which sets out the roadmap for the next 40 years. And it has been a great visit in every sense of the term, and I'm one happy ambassador in Seoul.
Wow. And of course, we here in Korea are curious about what the response from the Indian general public has been.
Well, let me put it this way, that India-Korea relations go back just 2,000 years. And I don't know whether you know the story. In the year 48, that is 2,000 years ago, an Indian princess came to Korea, married Kim Suro, and became Queen He. So that is the relationship. And so it's a part of India's folklore. And President Park's visit not only revived that happy memories and of the relationship, but added quite a few more. And a red carpet welcome, a very warm welcome was extended to her. And people of India, the leadership of India is absolutely delighted by her visit.
Okay, going back as far as back to when history and folklore meet, that's a great long historic relationship we have. Well, let's talk about some economic partnerships. CEPA, or Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, the two leaders did discuss ways to refurbish it, upgrade it, or make necessary adjustments or upgrades again. What kind of effects or benefits can we expect from it?
You perhaps are aware that India is the third largest country in Asia, Korea is the fourth largest country in Asia. Not only that, India is likely to be the third largest economy in the world in the next another 15 years, and the biggest market in the world. Now, we have two complementary economies, and the CEPA, which was operationalized on the 1st of January 2010, has been the locomotive, the locomotion for a closer economic engagement. Our trade has grown, our investments have grown, and now both sides are confident enough to further upgrade the CEPA to accelerate the process. And that is something that both sides want, and that is what both sides will have sooner than later.
So in Korea recently, economic forums have been held that focus on cooperation with India. You know, Korean businesses are really interested in their future business opportunities with India. So how do you see the future of the two nations in terms of economic cooperation?
Our trade has already crossed $20 billion. We have a target of $40 billion for 2015. Already billions of dollars of investments have flown in both directions, Indian investments in Korea, Korean investments in India. We are very hopeful that the POSCO project will start soon. And as you know, POSCO project is a $12 billion project, and which is the largest single investment in independent India. We have decided to set up a CEO's forum, which will be inaugurated very soon. Korean side is planning to set up a Korean industrial park in Rajasthan. I can go on and on. There's this simple reason that there are huge synergies on both sides, and Korean companies are some of the world leaders, and we are very happy to have them in India.
Well, talking about synergy, let's move on to something that rhymes with it, energy. When we talk about nuclear power plants, Korean companies are being entrusted with the task of constructing them in India. And definitely after recent issues, especially in Fukushima and others, it definitely shows how much trust they have in a Korean competence, rather, or ability to carry out the task. What's your perspective in the future between the two countries in that particular field, the nuclear power plant constructions?
India is a very rapidly developing economy, and as I've already mentioned, we are poised to become one of the largest economies in the world. So one thing that we need is energy, the second thing that we need is energy, and the third thing that we need is energy. So you can understand the importance of energy, and you need clean energy, and nuclear energy is clean energy. Korea already has 23 nuclear power plants, and Korea is one of the world leaders when it comes to civil nuclear, clean nuclear technology. So we are very happy to have a civil nuclear cooperation agreement with Korea, which was signed in July 2011. And we are looking forward to furthering our cooperation with Korea also in the field of energy, which includes civil nuclear energy, which includes other renewable forms of energy, and we are happy about that.
So we talked about the economy and energy. So other than the two areas, how do you think the two nations can forge stronger ties as strategic partners?
Well, we are very fortunate that we have strong people-to-people relations, and I have always maintained that any relationship is as strong as the people-to-people relations. So that gives us the opportunity of going forward. I've already touched on the economic relations, and we are now looking at enhancing our political partnership, our security partnership, our science and technology partnership, IT partnership. We have just decided that we are going to extend visa on arrival facilities for Korean tourists. And not only that, we have also agreed, in fact, Prime Minister of India has offered to gift a Bodhi tree, under which the holy Bodhi tree, which is very, very sacred for Buddhists, as a symbol of India-Korea friendship to Korea. So we have a broad-based relationship, and we are steadily building on that and rapidly building on that.
Well, moving on to cultural exchanges, in terms of culture, let's say from Hollywood, definitely it is something that Hollywood actually turns to for help, assistance, and inspiration these days.
Thank you, you're very kind. I really like that comment, and I'll quote you on that.
Thank you. Well, apparently, they do have Korean TV shows that are doing fairly well in India as well. So in the future, how do you see the future of Korean cultural contents perhaps getting a little bit more appreciation or a fan base in India, and also in terms of cultural contents being perceived at the moment by regular Indian folks?
Well, I must tell you that K-pop and Korean culture, Korean soaps, Korean dramas, films have taken the northeastern India by the storm. The boys and girls dressed like Korean pop stars and so on. And your and my common friend known as Mr. Sai is again somebody who has become a household name in India. So Korean pop, Korean culture is as popular or increasingly getting popular in India as Indian culture, and films, as you said, are popular. And I must share with you that one of the happy developments has been that your own TV channel, Arirang, has signed a memorandum of understanding with Doordarshan, which is the biggest Indian TV channel. And I'm very happy about that, because this will give a fillip to our people-to-people relations, our cultural ties, and so on.
And we are very happy and also feeling a little bit of pressure to perform a little bit better.
I was wanting to pressurize you both, and I know that you'll do very well.
Well, thank you very much for being here with us today. Vishnu Prakash, India's ambassador to South Korea.
Delighted.
Digging deeper, getting to the bottom of stories that impact your life. Talking with you on air and online. Connecting you with heroes and experts to help you understand the world's most pressing issues. News and current affairs at its best, with Moon Gun-young and Daniel Choy on Early Edition at 6.
Now shifting gears to the economy, Korean import prices rose by 2. Prime Minister Chung Won has ordered the chief of the nation's financial regulatory watchdog to come down hard on those found responsible for the mass data leak of more than 20 million bank and credit card users in Korea. Our Hwang Sung-hee has the details.
The government has warned that those found responsible for Korea's largest ever personal information leak will face extremely tough criminal penalties. Prime Minister Chung Won on Monday ordered the chief of the nation's regulatory body, the Financial Services Commission, to toughen penalties and inform the public about the exact damages and circumstances of the massive data leak. Chung also asked for strong countermeasures to ensure such incidents don't happen again. The information of some 20 million Korean bank and credit card users has been leaked, affecting almost all economically active people in the nation. The data was stolen from KB Kookmin Card, Lotte Card, and NH Nongyap Card. The Financial Supervisory Service says information taken includes the names, phone numbers, credit card numbers, addresses, and even banking records of millions of customers. State prosecutors have moved to reassure the public that this incident has not resulted in the leakage of any information to criminal organizations, for now at least. The Financial Supervisory Service says the credit card companies will cover any financial losses caused to their customers. While the watchdog is pushing to strengthen related regulations by having financial firms tighten restrictions to access client information, it's warning customers to be alert to online and phone-based financial scams. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
The Chinese economy grew at the slowest pace in 14 years in 2013, largely because of low growth in investment and domestic demand. China's National Bureau of Statistics said Monday that the nation's economy grew 7.7% last year. The overall growth was backed by 7.7% growth in the fourth quarter, an increase of 1.8% from the previous quarter. While the jump surpassed China's 2013 growth target of 7.5%, the figure represents the country's weakest annual growth since 1999. Analysts point out that the Chinese economy could slow further this year as Beijing plans to shift its focus away from exports and investment to domestic spending and consumption. Top U.S. officials will be in Seoul this month to address uncertainties in the region stemming from North Korea. U.S. Deputy Secretary of State William Burns, who will arrive in Seoul today, is scheduled for talks with South Korea's top presidential security advisor Kim Jang-soo and Vice Foreign Minister Kim Yeon-ji. Burns' visit comes after Pyongyang proposed the two Koreas stop any actions that could stoke tensions on the peninsula, such as calling off Seoul's annual military exercises with Washington next month. U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for East Asia Daniel Russell will visit Seoul on Sunday to discuss regional issues, including strained ties in Northeast Asia following the Japanese Prime Minister's controversial war shrine visit.
U.S. authorities are looking into the credibility of a possible new threat to the Sochi Winter Olympics. ABC News reported Sunday that Islamist militants in Russia released a video recorded by two suicide bombers who said the Olympics will not be safe, adding that they have a present ready for the Games. The opening ceremony will be held on February 7th in Sochi. In the face of concerns about possible attacks by militants, U.S. military and intelligence officials have been studying contingency plans for evacuating Americans from Sochi in case of a crisis. But U.S. officials have concluded there would be major obstacles to mounting a large-scale mission, as Russian authorities have historically been reluctant to allow foreign military forces, especially those of the United States, on Russian territory. Now, if and when the Syrian government and Western-backed political opposition in the country sit down at the negotiating table together along with world powers in Switzerland this week, Iran may be joining them. But the surprise invitation to Tehran from UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon is not being received well by the opposition or the United States. Our Connie Kim has the details.
With less than 3 days until landmark international peace talks in Switzerland over the civil war in Syria, the United Nations has invited Iran to the table, an invitation that Tehran has accepted. Speaking at a surprise news conference at the UN headquarters Sunday night, Secretary General Ban Ki-moon said Iran needs to be part of the solution to the Syrian crisis.
Foreign Minister Zarif and I agree that the goal of the negotiations is to establish, by mutual consent, a transitional governing body with the full executive powers.
Ban said Iranian Foreign Minister Zarif had pledged that Iran would play a positive and constructive role in the negotiations. However, the Western-backed main opposition group, the Syrian National Coalition, isn't as sure. They immediately condemned the invite, calling it a deal-breaker and announcing they would withdraw from the talks. It was just last Saturday when the main opposition group agreed to sit down side by side with the Syrian government, but their participation now remains in doubt. The United States has a more complicated stance on the matter. They support Tehran at the table, but only on a conditional basis. American officials have suggested that Iran had not met all the conditions for attending the negotiations in Montreal, Switzerland, which call for establishing a transitional body to govern Syria. Delegations from 30 countries are slated to meet for the Geneva II talks on Wednesday. More than 100,000 people have been killed in the civil war that began with peaceful protests in March 2011. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Let's go over to our Kim Bo-kyung at the Weather Center for an update. Bo-kyung, we got off to a snowy and dark start to the week here in Seoul. How are things looking now? Well, Yeon-ji, please be sure to have an umbrella on your ways out because the snow that's falling on the central regions at this hour is acid snow, which is a mixture of snow and yellow dust.
Well, that just kills the romance of enjoying rolling in the snow. How bad is it, Bo-kyung?
Well, Daniel, currently some parts of the central regions are seeing 5 times the normal levels, and it looks like tomorrow's snow will come to an end by tomorrow morning. However, keep in mind that the roads may be slippery, so please be careful behind the wheel. Moving on to tomorrow's readings, Seoul starts off the day at -7 degrees with a high of 0. Meanwhile, Gwangju and Busan hit 1 and 5 degrees respectively. Moving on to other regions, Jeju and Dokdo peak at 3 degrees while Mount Kumgang makes it to -4. Well, with all the snow, please be careful behind the wheel, and back to you guys.
Well, thank you for that, Bo-kyung. And that's all from us for this hour. This has been Daniel Chan.
And I'm Kim Yeon-ji. Thank you for watching.